Yeah, expressing myself. I'm not sure if I'm really like expressing myself with my pots, or maybe I am, because I just like shape and I always loved geometry and I loved architecture, dot that or period or how you say it, because there's nothing more behind it. I think even it's I just like shapes, geometry, and architecture, and that's it.
The biggest thing that stuck out to me when I first saw Tom's work was the uniqueness and the creativity of the shapes. There's so many Western ceramicists, non-Japanese, non-Chinese ceramicists in the Western world that are duplicating the common bonsai shapes, and Tom has really taken those shapes and manipulated them and built ideas around them and built stories around them.
My grandfather, my father's father, he had a lot of free time for me, and he just led me to the craft, in fact. And I think he was the one who bought me the book for Christmas, book about bonsai. I was 9-year-old, and then in spring, grandfather died, and I also dug up my first trees in 1990. He gave me like a piece of land in the garden. Before the bonsai book, I had just some carrots there and stuff like that. But from the spring 1990, I just started to plant some trees in there. My first 2 trees, I had to dig them both in one root ball. It was a spruce and a pine. And I still have the spruce. There was a little break in my bonsai activities because of, let's say, music and girls.
Yeah. What did the ladies think of bonsai?
They found it interesting. Yeah, maybe it was helpful.
There you go, kids.
You love your bonsai like you love your wife or girlfriend, and you love her in a pair of jeans or some nice dress or wedding dress. You also had some pots for me which were like wedding dresses, those extremely decorated ones. And you like your wife in bikini or even without them, and you still just love it. Yeah. So as a high school we call it gymnasium. It's like for the better students. But you have no specialization, so you're supposed to go to university then. So I tried it for architecture, where I didn't pass the history of art. So I tried building and construction. I did it for 2 years, but I just didn't want it. All these 2 years, I was just thinking about running away and doing bonsai somehow. And the first pot which I got fired was when I was 20 or 21, the year 2000, 2001 or something like that. First pots, I just tried some complicated designs like the one I called the mirrors or something. It was just ugly. I still have these pots. I was happy with those little improvements. Like it was still, for example, just very simple rectangle, but I could make it a bit more open, and I could make some different shape of the feet, a bit non-traditional. When I learned how to make these lotus-shaped pots, just reproductions of the old classics, I felt big freedom. Suddenly I had good arsenal of know-how of craftsmanship in that moment, and the big story could start. I even love to repeat the very basic shapes, like just clean, simple oval pot, for example, is just lovely work, and I really enjoyed it. Like finding the nice shape, even in a simple oval, which was repeated a million times on this planet, but still, it's because you make it with your hands and you just control it with your eye, and you want to train your eye, evolve your eye and skills too, and you can still do it just on an oval pot. I can even imagine me working on oval pots forever.
He finds a lot of satisfaction in the fundamental forms, and I think in order for somebody to be able to deviate and really create their own, they have to master the foundation of their craft. And to see somebody who can make a perfect rectangle that's not wonky, that's not bowed, with the finest grain of clay that has no grog to hold that structure, is a testament to a mastery of craftsmanship.
Now I'm going to show you how one of my first designs emerged. It was in the time when I was already producing some lotus shape pots, usually just the classics. I was trying to figure out how the old classic Chinese and Japanese masters do their lotus shape pots, where you see combinations of these shapes, maybe even with some belly. Then we come to this one back again. The other classic is where you have just some bellies all around the whole pot. So I was practicing these two. I took this design and I played with the dimensions of the particular features. So I made one that had very big belly, then a smaller one, and even smaller one, and a bigger. And we already have some pattern repeating here. Like these were the axes, so this is, or even these are the parts which are repeating there. From the other point of view, it gave some more depth to the lotus, because the features were smaller and smaller. Even this one is already bigger than this, but from the side it's even smaller again. So this transition from the big one to the small ones on the side, that was like an improvement already in my eyes. It's different from the one where all these features are just the same dimension. It also gets smaller and smaller to the side, but the ratio is a bit different. Then when I was thinking about some other improvement or some other change to this design, I realized that in these combinations there is just the last one, which I haven't seen. The very first one, I went just for 8-side. It was just a prototype pot. So I just basically built a body. I came to a point where I just had to think about the feet. I could make 4 feet on these corners, but I just couldn't imagine what I will do with the other areas here where there will be no feet. And I was looking at the plain body without any feet in that time. And I realized there's a way how to make 4 feet with connecting the 2 corners. And the way was just very simple. Had a pot like that, you just connected it with a carve like this. Then I was very happy with that pot. It was something new and it looked promising to me. When I wanted to make it a bit bigger, I knew that these parts of the walls will be I will just have to enlarge them so much that they became ugly. They became ugly just because of this carve here, because it was just bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just not nice. So I needed to increase the number of the walls. So I had to make some more walls. So I got the feet here. But here I didn't want to have another feet. I would end up with 8 feet. So I made another just shorter, like false feet. You already know this design. And this is just how I came to it. I realized that maybe this is even the very first design of mine. Even though it looks like a classic you've met many times, but I have a bit different approach to it. It's my interpretation of classics, where you see this, I'm not sure how you call it, but I think it's called like a mirror, or in Czech language we call it a mirror. When I saw these mirrors and was thinking about how to make them, this one came to my mind, like I do it using this corner, the slab I prepared for the corners, to offset a little bit over the edge. So it already gives me the 2 sides of the mirror, and then just with a thin slab added here on top and bottom of the mirror makes the other 3rd and 4th side. Just slightly different from the classics, but it's my first interpretation of an older classic design. You can also notice the ash glaze. This was the hot side, the side facing the flames, the side that usually gets the ash glazes formed, and it mostly appears on the upper rim.
I think there is the necessity to have the fundamentals to duplicate the traditional form in craftsmanship, in proportion, as well as in execution, in the final product of the firing and all of the components that went into that piece's creation through that process. And then I think there's the ability to break the rules, to step outside the box and to conceptualize a new form.
If I start speaking with the rectangular, it's just a rectangular with cut corners. Just a bit special shape of the wall, and the only thing I've changed with this classic style, I just saw the chance to add the feet in a way that it really fits the corner, and it becomes part of the whole design. The line of the corner just goes down to the feet, and it becomes just one body. And what I like about this design is its versatility. The soft change I made to this one made it so universal that I could also use it for a decagonal pot like this. So why we have this design upside down here? Because we can see all the details much better like this. I was asked this question when I still used to sell my pots myself on the exhibitions around Europe. I knew that most of my designs will miss something if people just saw them from above. So this is how I was selling my pots, usually upside down. This is a new design I made this year, let's say in April or May. It just appeared in front of my eyes somehow. Even though my eyes could be closed in that moment, I got the idea. I got the idea about these basic lines, and immediately I saw how they will meet three-dimensionally, what they do, especially in this section of the corner. And I knew that in this section where the corner already gets into the feet, there are these lines that will prepare some situation that I have to solve somehow when coming to the feet. So it was the thing that led me to make a hollow feet. And it's just so lovely to touch them, to let your finger just follow these paths. And it was really funny. I will maybe tell you later about this larger one when we can focus, or you will have to also touch it when I will talk about it. You can see that this design has some relation to my previous designs, and that's my message now, that I will never be able to design something like this without having the experience from the previous pots. Just this one really made it into the three-dimensional world at its best. I don't think I ever designed something what works so well in 3D.
Then I think there's another level, and I think this is that level that is an intangible aspect of the highest level of ceramicist or any artist in their creative medium, where you not only learn how to break the rules, but you start to make new rules. The Kraken, being in, I believe Tom refers to it as the sexy princess. I've always referred to it as the hippo on tiptoes. It reminded me of Fantasia, when the hippos are dancing in Fantasia when I saw that pot. And the body has such mass, but it comes down to these very delicate feet, and trying to understand how to use that container, having this small, extremely delicate, extremely detailed, very, very ornate tree that needed the physical mass of the container, but would be overwhelmed by something that had more than just a pinpoint of contact with the surface, was like this monumental breakthrough in what was traditionally understood about ceramic design. So I would say that the Kraken and the Sexy Princess combination is one of the groundbreaking pieces that we've done with Tom's work, and it also changed the design of that tree a little bit to be able to bring stability to that composition.
And you know, we'll have this carve here, it's like this one, then you have these inward carves like this one. For me, this is just top. I'm so happy to see this. I just love this one. This is the king of pots. When the color of the foliage turns to this, it's the winter color. And it fits so well with this grayish clay. But it just works so well together, and I love this combination. It just speaks to me somehow and makes me happy as a potter, as my work is used this way. I love Ryan for that.
I think another one that stands out to me is Steve Carini's medium-sized Rocky Mountain juniper in the square Tom Benda container with the scroll feet, because typically a container of that depth doesn't really work with an upright tree. It's more traditionally utilized in a semi-cascade or a cascading form. And Steve Carini definitely saw the potential in that composition. You know, I still have some institutionalization of how ceramic should be used with trees. And I think whenever you use something like a Tom Benda ceramic, you have to think outside of the realm of what you traditionally see. You don't have images of how his containers work with trees, because there really was no historical reference in the way that using a Japanese container, using an antique Chinese container has that visual reference and that history of several trees being in that shape to understand that aesthetic. So using Tom's work pushed me outside of the box of what I had traditionally thought to be possible or aesthetically pleasing, and opened up a whole new realm of bonsai design and container tree combination that gave rise to, I think, an entirely new spirit in the compositions. To have that freedom for me, to have a ceramicist provide that opportunity, only gives me more room to play as a bonsai professional and be creative and think about that relationship in different ways. And I would say it probably has had a dramatic impact on the way that I style trees.
So the first piece out, I call these like medium or even small forest pots or forest starter pots. And this is a pot made by my son. My son has been working with me this summer. He worked with me when he was very young, like 3 or 5 year old. You know, like kids want to do everything with their parents, especially boys with their fathers. And last summer, 2018, my son made some few pots, like it was his restart in that, you know, like making it seriously. I mean, this is the Proud Princess.
The experience of this shipment, Tom unpacked it and I came in and I saw all the work laid out. And inside of opening a Tom Benda package of ceramics, I've recognized, having had the two experiences of going one container at a time and that exploration and discovery of one container at a time, to seeing all of them laid out and not having had the chance to process each piece, it was overwhelming.
Yeah. I'm happy with that, very happy. My wife helps me a lot. Yeah, she works with me for almost 6 years now. She helps me, basically I have this attitude to the thing that she helps me to fill the kiln. I'm focused on the larger pieces or the design pieces. And my wife makes pots like you've seen, or this is also made by my wife. And then some small pots which fill the gaps in the kiln. Wood-fired kiln has to be like loaded properly. You can't leave any gap there because then the flames just find its shortest way through the kiln. When you're loading wood-fired kiln, you have to think about splitting the flames so they really, as I say, lick every pot. Then,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
My wife is my best student and almost the only one, just my family studying. Yeah, and here we have a pot which is something like a new design. It's nothing like extraordinary, but it's an extraordinary piece thanks to my kiln. I just love the job that the kiln did. Yeah. This side is the hot one, the one where the flames were coming. This is the colder side. And I can't say which one is better, both of them. Yeah. Another pot for my son. I have several of these in my own garden too, because every year I sow hundreds of seeds of palmato maple, and then I make some small forests. I call them shohin forests. I have just like 2 trees for which I made the pots, and the other trees in my pots, it's just like it's a B quality pot that something happened. So yeah, and this can also be used as a shohin forest pot. I just love this design. I love all of the designs I have here, so you can hear me saying this very frequently. Every firing has its signature. Sometimes the temperature is a bit higher, sometimes a bit lower. But this glaze works in wider ranges, in wider range of temperatures, and it's more stable. It doesn't run down. The body of the glaze is even thicker a bit. I'm very happy with this evolution of glazes. I'm slowly evolving designs, the handcraft skills, and glazes too. This is the basic pot, which is very normal, simple. It's the centerpiece of the whole set, and this pot with this cut edge just fits next to it. And the set could be larger. I prepared more pots, but I lost them. I have just these 2.
With his set pieces, what he is conceptualizing for those set pieces to represent is probably very different from the inspiration that it stimulated inside of my mind of how they could be utilized. This is magic, because when you see a rectangular container, you're going to say, okay, an informal upright tree or a formal upright tree is going to be your standard choice for a rectangular container. Well, what do you do with an L-shaped container? There is no set standard for how you utilize that, and Tom making it probably had an idea, and me seeing it, I had an idea, and those ideas are going to be entirely different. Well, now all of a sudden, his work is catalyzing new creative opportunities, and this is not something that the traditional form has really ever been able to facilitate.
So, some simple shapes, simple forms. These I call just pine growing pots. And yeah. And now a pot where I'm very happy with this one. You've already got pots, several pots, like 2 or even 3 pieces in this design in previous shipments. Just the first ones were based on a square pattern and in a more Hankenga-ish proportions. Maybe this is not the perfectly first one in these proportions, but what's for sure, it's the biggest one I ever made in this design. And you can see it's just lovely. The quality of the surface. I love this clay. And yeah. The only pot that survived under the collapsed shelves, and the quality of this glaze is just exceptional. I can't believe this happened. It's even though it experienced such high temperatures, it ended up with satin matte finish, and the differences in the color of this glaze. This is my own glaze recipe. The body was made by my wife, like her latest new know-how from me. The drops make like an extension to the feet. Decagonal version of one of my designs. This maybe looks like a simple classic design, but I've never seen it executed with such a shape of the wall, and again with feet connected with the whole design. And yet another pot from my wife, an unglazed one, with heavy ashes and yeah, really high temperature. I love how this clay reacts to wood firing. And again, nice result of the new dark blue glaze. I just fell in love with this glaze so much, and even the cold side. Oh. I'm happy to see all the pots again. You know, after firing, my whole studio is just full of the new pots, and in fact I have to get rid of them. Like I need to start work, so I just pack them and they're gone. Yeah. And it's always nice to see them again. My kiln is outside, and when I'm bringing the pots into the kiln, there can be no rain in that moment, and yeah, sometimes when it's freezing, I just get so cold that I need to recover, and I can't go to another firing immediately. And yeah, so it's usually 2 or 3 weeks since I fire these 3 or 4 kilns. This time 4, and then I just have to pack them immediately or as soon as possible. And we've already seen a very simple design on a smaller pots, and this is the biggest I ever made in that design. I was always looking forward to that, trying it. I haven't used this dark red glaze for a while, and I'm happy to see such a result again. It's very sensitive to the layer again. With thicker layer, it even becomes yellow. When there's some, we don't have the thin layer. If it's thin layer, it's usually just black. It really helps when I have the names for my designs, because for this one I have no name, and how I cannot talk about it. Like, yeah, it's another of that one, you know, I've been talking before. Yeah. This is one of the classic pots. I like them. I just produce them for almost my whole career, usually in this size, because I usually begin with the same portion of clay, so they always end up somewhere around this size and proportions. It's a classic, or basically it's a classic, but the difference is in the feet, how I make this like classic shape of a feet. My interpretation is, I think, more three-dimensional. This is just a prototype of something I'm working on now, because it's not visible in this yet. I just still try to find the new way through this. I have just slightly different approach when giving the shape to this. So yeah, I'm testing a new approach of shaping, which I will keep for myself. With this new attitude to shaping, I like through the process I get some situations which I have to solve somehow, like both technically and aesthetically, and so I will like fight with this new attitude and find some really good design in that. So the design will just come to me, or I will find it while working. So this is another Hela. Hela is the design, like the new approach to shaping. I call it Hela because it reminded me to, if you've seen some of the Avengers, Thor, something, it was in Thor Ragnarok, there was Hela with such a crazy crown. And the shapes reminded me a lot about it. With 15 sides, Hela offered me a bit different situation to solve here, so it gave me this pattern this time. I'm looking forward to try this new attitude, like Hela attitude, to shaping the pots on some square or rectangle next time. You know, even such a small pot, but I'm always happy to see. I like our round bodies of pots, because we don't have a potter's wheel, so it's slapped, but I like it like that because with wheel thrown pots I still see the machine behind it, because the pattern it does while rotating, okay, it's hands touching and shaping it, but the pattern that it just circled around, and this is much softer feeling to the whole shape, like the appearance is softer. In my current studio, I even don't have place for potter's wheel, so yeah, another one. It's my latest design, or this year's design. This year I made like 3 or 4 new, but this is the Tsukuba. Just a lovely version. This is one of my most time-consuming designs. Even a small pot like this takes me more than 2 days to finish, even with these dimensions. So that was Tsukuba. And here is yet another Tsukuba.
Big Daddy.
Yeah. Just.
Was this one also 2 days, or this one took you a little bit longer?
This one took almost 4.
Yeah.
And I just love it so much. You know, this pot was there for a couple of days in my studio before I packed it, and I just stared at it for, yeah, maybe even hours. In total, it must have been hours for sure. Another of my currently new designs, or this year's new designs. We've already seen 2 pots in this, but now you're gonna get it in size like this. And this one was in the catastrophic, disastrous firing. So when that happened, I was so afraid that I have lost this pot. And then so surprised that it survived because it was on the fallen big shelf. I found it in a position like this, and it touched the wall of the kiln here. So there's just a little trace of it. But you know, I think this is just a beauty spot, like Cindy Crawford. And maybe I can call this one Cindy. And this is the hot side where it got more flames. The other side is a lighter color, but can also be used as frond with many species. I've been thinking about some crazy larch, for example, larch with that, but yeah. I was thinking about some beech forest in it. Or hornbeam, or some deciduous tree with light gray color of the bark. But I think I can imagine that it can be used with many other types. So it even doesn't have to be a forest. Game is over, almost. This is the last pot. It's a forest pot. Yeah, sound is good, so it just survived the inspection. And this one is also a survivor of the disastrous firing, which is absolutely unbelievable. You know, the big shelf used for this, it's not one big shelf. You can't get a shelf like that. And so basically I have like 2 beam, yeah, I have something like 2 beams and 3 smaller shelves on it. So when it collapsed, it contorted a bit. So this pot is also a little bit contorted, but still all the 4 feet stand. Because in the edges where it's, in the corners where it's contorted, still, at least the edge at the very corner, still touches the ground. So, and here's a little beauty spot too. Here it touched the ceiling of the kiln, but still it survived in this one whole piece.
To see Tom at this point in his career, one of the most in-demand ceramicists in the world, not just the Western world now, but his pots are highly coveted in Japan. And to see him continuing to evolve those ideas is the mark of a true artist. And I think very few ceramicists cross that threshold in the bonsai ceramic community of moving from a craftsman to an artist. And I think Tom is really one of those ceramicists that's leading that charge. Anytime you start to value somebody and their creativity and their work, you wonder, where is the limit? Where's the stopping point? Where does that upward trajectory start to plateau, or maybe even start to drop off? And this is something that's consistent in any creative endeavor. One thing I recognize about Tom Benda is that Tom Benda is not done. Tom Benda is not even near what he can potentially do. And Tom Benda probably will never run out of ideas and evolutions of his work and his body and scope of creativity. And I think I left my time with Tom Benda recognizing that there's a very, very bright future out there. And there is a whole new world of inspiration and creativity that's going to come from this very special person that will definitively continue to push my boundaries of creativity and raise the level of what's possible in the art of bonsai.
Ryan inviting me here, that means just so much to me. I'm so thankful for that and happy, like really, this is like blessing or something, being here. I just, in my mind, I translated from Czech language, you know, so it's like the firm point in the world for me. Like, if the world is about to collapse, I would still feel like, yeah, there's a good spot, still like giving me some hope for for the whole world.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
that's what it means here for me, really.